It's no secret that I recently picked up Hearthstone again after having not played it for many years. I did a video that was showcasing the version of Rogue that I was playing. I called it budget, but as somebody pointed out, it didn't look super budget, and I guess what I meant by budget at the time was that it was going to be something easy to build if you had taken a break from Hearthstone like I did and then had come back, because the legends that that deck did use were from the core classic set, and so it was stuff I had lying around. Now, since that time, a couple of things have happened. One, Rogue got nerfed pretty hard. Also, I climbed further and further up the ladder, and I started becoming more and more familiar with the meta as it is right now in Hearthstone in Standard. And so with the combination of the Rogue nerfs and me running into things that were just more and more hard counters, I decided I wanted to focus on Standard for the limited time that I was playing Hearthstone, and I went through and I just dusted all the stuff I had from old sets that I was no longer playing. So again, I played Hearthstone many years ago. I had a bunch of stuff from sets like the Grand Tournament and Whispers of the Old Gods. And if I'm not going to use them and I just wanted to focus on Standard, there's no point in having them around. So I dusted them so that I could build myself a small handful of relatively meta decks, and I wanted to share them with you. Now, over the next couple of days, I'm going to share 3 decks. These are the 3 that I've been playing, starting with this one, which is Token Druid. And I will throw out the caveat, which is at the end of the month, there is going to be a bit of a shakeup. They're introducing a new legendary card, and there's also going to be like 18 buffs thrown around in terms of balance changes. There is a chance that some of those impact the meta, but for the most part, I expect versions of the decks that I'm showing to still be pretty competitive, so I'm comfortable with sharing the lists that I've been playing so far. And as I said, we're going to start with Token Druid. This is pretty straightforward. If you've played Legends or Magic or other card games, you're trying to flood the board with cheap creatures and then buff them with board-wide effects. So early on, cards like Acorn Bearer, it's a nice solid 1-drop, and it adds some 1/1s to your hand, and those 1/1s represent easy and cheap bodies later on. This summons 2 creatures, aka tokens. This replaces itself. This is like removal that leaves a 1/1 behind. Keeper here is just like a value generator with cards like Power of the Wild. So Power of the Wild, more often than not, you're going to play this for the +1/+1 to all your minions, because again, you're trying to flood the board, but it can be a 3/2 Panther in a pinch. And again, if you play it with Keeper on the board, then you get some extra value. Wrath is cycle and or removal. Blessing of the Ancients, again, buffs all of your minions. Landscaping summons bodies. Microtech Controller summons bodies. Savage Roar is like your finisher. You want to go wide and then attack for a ton. Archmage. This is really good if you can play it late game alongside something like Blessing, because you're going to get double the value. It can also be a game breaker if you can land it with something like Swipe. So that's there. Continuing on, Soul of the Forest is like insurance. So if you're going to play all these cards that allow your bodies to go wide, you're vulnerable to board sweeping effects, and you need bodies on the board. So Soul of the Forest allows you to ensure that your stuff is sticking. Swipe is again removal and or reach. Whispering Woods just makes a ton of tokens. The Forest's Aid, this is your late game token generator. So if they continue to just sweep your board, knock things out, maybe you're playing against Warrior that has Brawl and Warpath style effects, then Forest Aid lets you repopulate in the late game. And then where I deviate, I know some people are running like the Loa and other cards. I decided to just rock 2 Sea Giants, because you're going to have a ton of stuff on the board all the time. And usually when people are playing against Token Druid, they're expecting to deal with wide boards, and you're still going to generate that. But if you can also slap down a meaty 8/8 creature, then they have to pick their poison on what they're going to attempt to deal with. So I'm running 2 Sea Giants in my version, and this is the list. So like I always do with these videos, I'm going to now go play a couple of games so I can kind of showcase it in action, and you can get the feel of the deck.
Malfurion versus Jaina.
You asked for it.
So jumping into this game, we are going first. We are up against a mage, and we've got some good early game options. We've got Guardians, Landscaping, solid turn 2, turn 3 plays to try to go wide. Typically, Mage doesn't play many things early on. Sometimes there are a couple of early game drops that replace themselves, but I think we send this back since we already have better early game and hope that we find something like Acorn Bearer or maybe Blessing of the Ancients. Or at least just something else in that vein. So we're going to keep... And there we go, Blessing of the Ancients. So we're going to keep the things that let us go wide. And then hope that we can go even wider. So when you're playing against Mage, it's either going to be Cyclone Mage or Conjuring Mage. Usually. Every now and then I run into the old school, like, tempo variant, but...
What shall we hunt?
Of the two, I actually think Cyclone Mage is more annoying to play against because they've got more ways to kind of wipe your board. Conjuring Mage is kind of all in on getting their combo off and hoping that they just play a wild number of big guards.
Is ours.
Alright, well. It's really tempting to remove that. However,
Got one. Got one.
our game plan is to go wide, so we're going to do just that. Now, in all likelihood, they're going to take a trade here. Not much we can do about it. But we want to get bodies on the board and then go wide. Next turn is a bit of a problem because we likely will want to get rid of this. If they take this trade, then we might just use that. It just puts us off. The more... Well, maybe we won't. Maybe we will just use the other treant and then just re-landscaping.
Behold the tools of creation.
The ideal scenario is we want to get this blessing on a pretty large board. So this appears to be Cyclone Mage. Again, this is the more annoying version of Mage when you're playing Token Druid to deal with, at least in my opinion. Because they generate so many random spells, and oftentimes those random spells end up being ways to clear your board.
Behold the tools of creation.
And at some point here, we're going to see that Cyclone come down. There it is. So that's the point of Cyclone Mage. Play a bunch of spells, and then you play this, and then it just refills your hand with a bunch of raw value. And unfortunately, that stalled us pretty well. We are going to go ahead and take the Whispering Woods, though, and then just hope that they, with their random spells, didn't find something like Arcane Explosion. If they have an Arcane Explosion, we are way behind on board. Actually, there's a number of cards that put us way behind, but it's the risk that I think we have to take here. If they don't have an answer, they're likely looking at value trade, and at least one ping. Oh, speaking of random stuff, there's the Cinderstorm. And as I said, that's exactly why this particular deck is as annoying as it is. Alright, well, we're gonna go ahead and just take the clear. Could have also traded that in and swiped face to get more damage in, but by leaving this body behind, yes, they can ping it, but they have to spend 2 mana to do so. Puts them a little bit down in terms of tempo, and if they don't hit that, then we can pump it up with a Blessing of Ancients here. Oof! That Mountain Giant is not what we wanted to see, though. Not at all. So here we are at 6. And we're just going to make some bodies and buff them. That's kind of all we can do. I expect this to get hit with the Conjure here in a moment, which is going to be bad news for us. Because we don't have a good way to deal with it. Oh, they don't have it. Well, I mean, it turns out 8/8s are just fine enough anyway, and we're gonna keep our board down while also pumping up Questing Adventurer rather large. We're gonna just go ahead and get rid of this. And...
For the wild.
guess sneak in some damage, but it's not looking great for us. Now the good news is we've got Forest's Aid the following turn. The bad news is we're still kind of behind on board. That's not counting the massive number of cards our opponent still has in hand. And they continue down the random train. I like to call this Casino Mage as opposed to Cyclone Mage, because the reality is most of the cards you play aren't things that started in your deck. I mean, it's just the reality of it. Alright. Nothing there that's too shocking. Alright, let's see if we can get this secret triggered here. And we did. Let's go ahead and play some trees. We expect at least one of these to die, if not more than one, but thankfully this had the old twin spell on it, so we can play it again if necessary. And if not, we can push a lot of damage.
Let's stash that away. I will show you fear.
Fun combo. Shuffle an elemental. Get an elemental. Alright. So now we're gonna have to do some math and figure out if this is worth our investment. So we have 8 on the board. And if we do this, that takes us up to 12. And then we can go up to lethal here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and buff our board. We're gonna go ahead and take the Savage Roar. And then we're also gonna take this buff here. And that's gonna be exactly 23. And despite them doing their best to keep us down, we managed to pull it through. So yeah, Token Druid, you want to go wide. Let the animations go before I talk. You want to go wide, and then once you have like any sort of board, because of your board-wide buffs, Savage Roar has been for a long, long time very, very impactful in Druid. It turns out it still is. You can finish somebody off, even if they're in the low 20s like that. So you got to make sure you're paying attention to the math. Let's go ahead and jump into another game just so that we can show off the list a little bit more.
Malfurion versus Rexxar.
So now we're going to be going up against Hunter.
Protect the wild.
And Hunter comes in a couple of different flavors. Could be Secret Hunter, could be the Mech Hunter. We like Keeper, and we certainly like Power. If we can stick Keeper and follow it up with a Power, we're in good hands. I think we want another, like, minion to follow this up. Blessing is very, very good. It's a card that we want, but if we're going to start with this Keeper opener, I don't think this is what we want to pair with it. Like, ideally, we want to draw an Acorn Bearer here. Like, that is best mulligan that we could get back, but Microtech is also solid. Basically, you want a backup plan. So if we're going to go with a turn 2 Keeper and pray that it survives, then next turn we absolutely take the Power. If it does not survive, we need a follow-up play, something that's good on 3.
Free your mind.
And Microtech here fits that bill. So this tells us it is Secret Hunter. There's a number of things they could have had to remove that, but thankfully we didn't see it. So in this instance, we're gonna go ahead and make ourselves a Panther so that we get this benefit. And now we have to start playing around potential secrets. So it could be Explosive Trap, could be Freezing Trap, Misdirection, Rat Trap, Snake Trap. Let's just go here.
Job's done.
We expect it to be a Freezing Trap, and it is. But I'm actually relatively okay with that. It gives us the ability to maybe play this later if we find a second split card. So if we're gonna get Freezing Trapped, like that's an okay one to get Freezing Trapped. Alright, so that's gonna eat our Panther because they're gonna want to protect this. And rightfully so. And so now as we walk into this next turn, we have some decisions to make. Wrath is certainly useful. We could just go ahead and use Swipe there if we really wanted to, and then save ourselves on a turn 5 for maybe that into buffing them. It's not terrible. Just feels bad to use Swipe on only a Secret Keeper. The other option is we could use this and then hope that we draw another 3-drop to then pair with this next turn. We could just Wrath this and then play the Panther. It's actually pretty appealing as well, and I think that's what I'm going to end up settling on. Partially because whatever we play, we have to understand there's a risk that they're just going to chew it up with an Eaglehorn Bow, and a vanilla 3-2, I'm fine with that being what they hit. The downside, though, is this is going to be a baited arrow. Once you see that coin go out, and then you know they're going to 5, it's going to be for that, so... I'm just going to go ahead and still do this. Because we need a presence on the board. We want to go wide and make them kind of try to deal with it. Secret Hunter traditionally only has a couple of tools to really deal with an ultra-wide board. They have Explosive Trap, and then they typically run 1 or 2 copies of Release the Hounds. Everything else is kind of spot removal. So if you can continue to pressure them by going wide, you can oftentimes get a lot of value that way. Wow, they are opting to just go ahead and push face, huh? This is probably a freezing trap to deny the trade here, but we'll go ahead and test to see if it's a snipe. Now, it could be a snake trap or something, but I expect this to get bounced. There's the freezing trap. So now we at least know both of those are out of the way. We'll happily make this trade. Downside, they're going on offense, right? This is probably going face, and then they're going to start using this to really put the pressure. Good news is we're pretty close to being able to just fight for the board ourselves here. But we're still also a couple of turns out from an effective lethal, unfortunately. So this is likely a snake trap, and that's okay. We want to get that out of the way. And this could be still explosive. Could be a number of things. Let's test the waters here with, see if it's a snipe.
This be our neck of the woods.
It is. So we will go ahead and swipe the board away and give ourselves some more bodies to try to push damage here. So again, you just kind of have to recognize the potential secrets your opponent has and play around them. Okay, so one of these is almost assuredly an explosive trap at this point. Just almost assuredly. Question is, what is the other one? Rat trap, I suppose?
I wonder.
Alright, well, let's get the explosive trap out of the way. There it is. Rat trap, as I'm looking at the deck list, is the only thing that we haven't really seen very well yet. They have 1 card in hand. So we have some decisions to make here. We just need to not die. So there's a strong case to be made about just taking this trade anyway and playing Forest's Aid. Because if they have any sort of additional damage in their hand, plus the hero power plus this, that's an issue. So we are going to take the trade and develop Forest's Aid. Because this sets us up for a potential lethal this following turn, and most Secret Hunter decks only run 1 explosive trap. Now the downside is we lose if they have, like, Unleash the Hounds, but there was no way for us to effectively play around that. Otherwise here, again, we know that this is basically Rat Trap, and now we can just double Savage Roar and confidently push our way to victory, like you do. So, there you go. That is Token Druid. I think that's a great demonstration of what the deck is trying to do. As you can see, sometimes things get a little bit hairy, and then you have these power spikes, right? So typically turn 8, when you can play the Forest 8, is a big power spike, and then even more so turn 9 when you can follow it up with additional plays. Usually turns like 5 and 6 are like mini power spikes because you're trying to, turns like 2 and 3 and 4, you're just playing bodies on the board. And then when you're hitting 5 and 6, you're hopefully hitting something like Blessing of the Ancients or getting your board-wide buffs to like increase your presence, push damage, and then usually they respond, wipe your board, and then that's when you come back for like your second wind, if you will, with cards like the Forest Aid. So anyway, if you made it this far, this is Token Druid. I've been having fun playing this list. The rest of this week, I'm going to post a couple more videos on decks I've been playing, because I've also been playing Secret Hunter that we just played against, and I've also been playing like the Conjurer's Calling Mage, the Conjuration Mage. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.